So welcome to this presentation of our paper, Foregrounding Learning and Infrastructuring to Change Worldviews and Practices in the Public Sector. We've been looking forward to share this with you. And who are we? We are myself, Mette, hello, Anders.
Hello.
And our colleague Anna, she couldn't be here, but she says hi. And you also here see all the institutions and funders enabling this work, whom we thank. And where are we now? And where was the context of the case in the paper? We're in Scandinavia, southern Sweden, region of Skåne, particularly in the Öresund region, and particularly in Malmö. And the public sector is broad, at least in Scandinavia. So in this paper, we deal with Swedish library development. We'll return with more details later.
So we have for many years been engaged with civil society actors and tried to develop social innovation and produce value in local communities. And in this work, public sector has a very important role, especially because they have some mandate and power to make changes. Another reason we are interested in the public sector is also that increasingly civil servants have expressed an interest in co-design methods, in working more participatory, more designerly.
So why do we argue for this foregrounding of learning and infrastructuring? Actually, we have not seen in the theory and in PD a link between these two. However, in practice, we've seen a need for this. So the aim of the paper is to contribute to this. And in this and the coming slides, we go a bit into the details of some of the theorizing it. There's much more in the paper. But firstly, mutual learning, as it's often called in PD, is about this relationship between the users and designers and their respective fields. In PD, it's also described as a distinguishing characteristic to set up these mutual learning processes. However, as Bosn et al. Argue, this is actually not a very sufficient framework for evaluating what learning is happening in these processes. So that's again where this paper comes in. And Anders?
And a lot has been written about infrastructuring in the field of participatory design, especially Starr and Ruhleder, who emphasized the relational aspect, that it's something that is learned in practice. And it's also been discussed as a kind of processual, ongoing and open-ended process. We have also been writing a lot of papers about this, especially how kind of agency can emerge between designer, researcher and participants along the way. But this time we will actually highlight another aspect that Starr and Ruhleder also talked about, the different levels of learning, different levels of communicational breakdowns in infrastructuring. And on the first level, they talk about facts and practical issues that can hinder infrastructure to emerge. On the second level, they talk about contextual effects, where people are situated in different contexts and do not understand each other. At the third level, they talked about values and worldviews and schools of thought that can influence our opportunity to understand each other and have the infrastructure to really work. And they argue that what are missing are institutional mechanisms to understand and address second and third level issues, especially as they unfold over time. And you can say this framework has been the base for our case.
So to the case, a few more details about it. Again, it's about regional library development. It was a 4-year-long infrastructuring PD process. You see the timeline here with the main activities, sessions. Process was organized as what we called collabs, so 2 following processes combined with in-between interviews, informal interviews, dialogues. It was driven by us and the region of Skåne, and the process included the main library team of regional officers, managers and local librarians. So all in all, people with different mandates for change. And over these years, we've observed learning leading to change, both in worldviews and practices. So we, for example, saw these changes manifested in new policy documents, where this example is from. We saw new templates and formats, new activities, which this is an example of. And we also saw new roles of the regional officers emerging. So now Per-Anders will go into a few more details on the case.
Yes, some few glimpses. I mean, many of the librarians in the first collab, they start to engage in very designerly experiments, initiating ideas for how to develop their everyday practices. But they also had these kind of reflective sessions, and they were asked to set up a discussion on matters of concern. And one group then made a performance where they actually problematized the whole prominent innovation narrative that you can find in the library world today. And this led to even more profound level 3 questions, such as, what is a library? What kind of value should they actually produce? And several of them were also frustrated because they're often measured and evaluated according to how many books people borrow and how many visitors they get, while actually their real value is that they support lifelong learning, democracy, and actually can meet citizens on their own terms, especially many immigrant groups. And then the second collab, here we continue to work with the regional officers that work with strategy development. And we had monthly half-day sessions with them. And if we have been driving the design work in the first collab, this time we actually prompted them to take charge of the process. And we mapped the yearly wheel of the current core activities, how they funded different initiatives and so forth. And the major level 3 learning here regarded what is actually strategic work, because they historically had been much more connected to operational work and to the libraries, while they felt that they more and more had been distancing towards this.
So now towards the end, how did we design and stage for this foregrounding of learning? I'll only highlight a few examples, much more is listed in the paper, but first, this framing of learning is important. Also, the encouragement of local experiments and this is where we withdraw a bit, and we were not driving the design of new solutions as PD researchers. Also, for example, if we jump here to challenge these taken for granted worldviews that existed, we, for example, opened or put on the whiteboard some of the hand-on working formats and materials, just to give a few examples. But time's up, so thank you very much. Questions, comments, please don't hesitate to get back to us. So bye-bye.